Hey guys, welcome back to Tem Talks, where we'll just be chatting it up. No judgments, just opinion. Please remember, if you like the video,
Like the video.
if you love the chat,
Love.
what's supposed to comment? Please remember, if you like the video,
Like the video.
if you love the chat,
Comment.
and if you want to come back,
Subscribe.
also, if you don't want to get left behind, please remember to hit that notification bell so you'll be notified when the next Tem Talks drop. Now, let's get into the video. So today I have Fabiana. You want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Fabiana. And Tamara's my coworker. I don't know what else we're supposed to share.
Yeah, yeah. We work together. We met 2 years ago. We started the same day. Met through different people, and yeah. And now we're here 2 years later.
Yeah, 2 years later.
And we have a lot in common, more than we thought.
Way more than we thought.
And she's from St. Lucia, so she's from the Caribbean. I'm from Jamaica. I'm from the Caribbean. So today we're going to talk about imposter syndrome, right? And in my very first video, I mentioned imposter syndrome, and I said we'll talk about that another time. And so today is the day that I'm going to talk about it, and Fab is going to help me talk about it. So first of all, a lot of people don't know what imposter syndrome is. Although a lot of them might have imposter syndrome, they just don't know that's what it is. So I just want to talk about like what it is first. So based on my understanding and my readings, it's basically when you really doubt yourself. Although you might be successful, you might accomplish a lot, you still doubt yourself and feel like you're not good enough and you're just a fraud, right? So that's what imposter syndrome is.
Yeah, it's minimizing one's capabilities. It's often said that really quote-unquote intelligent people feel that way. And I think most times it's because they're used to probably being considered the very intelligent one, and they get in a room with other intelligent people and it's like, okay, now I'm doubting myself.
Yeah, and even like people who, like for me, I've had a lot of accomplishments and I've still felt like I'm not enough. And a lot of people might say, oh, you've done so much, and in the past I would be like, yeah, they're saying all of this, but I don't see the big deal, you know. It's just a simple thing. I think they're dragging it too much. I don't think I'm as good as they make it seem and stuff like that. So that's basically what imposter syndrome is. And what I found out is that there are different types of imposter syndrome, which I had no idea. There are like 5 different types, right? First, you have perfectionists. So basically, these people set really high goals for themselves, and if they fail, they start to doubt themselves. Then you have the superhuman. The superhuman is the one that always tries to work harder than everybody else because they feel like they need to do that to measure up to the standard or to everybody else.
Another type is the natural genius, is where they judge their competence based on, I guess, their natural abilities, just being naturally smart. Another is the soloist, where they want to take on tasks solely by themselves and really try not to reach out for help. And the other is expert. They believe they know enough. They don't need pretty much any more information. The know-it-alls. I don't like those types.
What's your experience with imposter syndrome? Has it been like a struggle for you, or do you even experience it a lot?
You get in a room with people, and people probably highly praise you for. Let's just use an example. You know, another foreign language. People probably highly praise you for that, and you walk into a room with people who know 5, right? It's almost instant, like, okay, it's minimized. So what I would say, I don't necessarily dwell on it for sure. I was trying to figure out with the different types that we just mentioned, which one will I fall under? I can't quite see myself under any, because I really believe in giving myself grace. Before I even ask others to give me grace, I give myself grace. So me coming in and learning a new role, for example, no, I'm not expecting to know everything in 1 month. I don't care how you feel about it. I don't care what your expectations are. I hear them, but I extend grace to myself all the time. So I wouldn't say really something I suffer from, but of course, being a human being, of course, sometimes we probably minimize our capabilities. The closest one, maybe perfectionist. I try to do my best. Everything I do, try to give it my all. It may or may not work out.
But when it doesn't work out, when you set your standard at a certain level and you
Yeah.
don't meet it, does it feel like you're a fraud, like you're not good enough?
Yeah, maybe doubting a little bit. Feel like I'm not disciplined enough. I really struggle with making sure I could tell myself, you need to be more disciplined. Time management, all of that, other factors I try to pull in to excuse myself as far as why things perhaps did not work out. Yeah, so there's always, I guess, some feeling of self-doubt.
As it regards to like what you said about going into the role and you know their expectations, but you're focusing on your giving yourself grace. Like when I first started with the company we work for, it's like I had such a rough time, and because my imposter syndrome-ness was so much, it was like I feel like I'm not good enough, because I come here, I feel like I don't know nothing. I don't know what I went to school for. I have this bachelor's degree, and look at me over here looking like a dummy, not knowing nothing. That I was so hard on myself, and luckily I had people around me to remind me that if I wasn't good enough, they wouldn't have chosen me to be a part of their company, And so, yeah, it was hard for me in the beginning, but I feel like now it really is about perspective now. First of all, you have to be aware, self-aware that you do have imposter syndrome. You do feel like a fraud sometimes, and that's the best thing, to know that it's there. Then you can address it and now look at perspectives, because in the beginning I was looking at it like I'm so dumb, whatever. But now, knowing that this is an issue I have, I look at a more positive outlook, and I'm like, I know I'm good because they offered me this job, right? So it's just for me to slow down and absorb the knowledge and work at it, because it's a process, and I won't just be good at something like right now.
Right. Yeah, and also I think a good way too is looking back at your past experiences. I love to say, oh, I did this before and I'll do it again, right? So there are so many challenges you could think of that we had to overcome. For example, just moving here to the U.S. from the Caribbean, all those barriers that we had to overcome. So moving to Iowa, no, I'm not going to sit down there and pretend like this is the worst thing I've ever done or the hardest challenge I had to face. No, I've done it before and I'll do it again. I give myself that grace, so.
I feel like a lot of people can speak so confidently about where they are in that stage of the syndrome right now, because they're still figuring out themselves. I feel like when I was at the point where I didn't know where I wanted to go, I didn't know what I wanted to be, what I wanted to do, it was more there, like at school. I would be in different student organizations, right? And I would be in leadership positions, and people would be like, you inspire me so much and all of that. And I'm like, look at you, huh? Talking about I inspire you, and I don't even know what I want to do in my life. I used to get so upset internally, but then honestly, that's just the imposter syndrome. No matter how much you're accomplishing, no matter how much you put yourself out there and people see the potential in you, people see the drive, you inspire people in yourself because of what you're going on in your head, like right now where you are in your life, it just feels like you're a fraud. Like they don't even know that I don't know nothing.
Right.
I should probably tell them, like, it's so unfair to them to be inspired by someone like me that have no idea what I'm gonna do. And that's like, it was just so bad. But now, knowing what I want to do, being happy with where I'm at, finding my passion, my purpose, if somebody say I inspire them, I'm gonna say, nice, so lovely, I'm glad I could inspire you, because I'm more confident in myself. And with more confidence, I feel like, for me at least, the syndrome kind of goes down where it came from. Like we don't need it. We don't need you no more.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, I think it's really great that you're able to, like you said, notice that and be aware of it rather than just not knowing what it is and you just assuming that maybe this is how things are and that's how it's probably going to always be. So I think the first step, like I said, is just recognizing this as the issue and being more confident now and going forward, where it's no longer probably, just being minimized, right? So.
Yeah, and I think getting over it, it's easier said than done. Because as you know, this is something that it's like a little voice in your head saying you're not good enough. And that's never something that's easy to get out of your head. And especially in times of uncertainty, it might be really hard. But you have to remember that it's a process, right? And it takes time. After you're self-aware, you know about the fact that you have imposter syndrome, like you have accepted it, you're not in denial, then now you are thinking about perspective. As I said before, you have to train yourself to think more positively. Just like for anything in life, in the beginning, after you say, yes, I'm going to do this tomorrow you're gonna do it. The next day you're gonna do it a little less. The next day you're gonna do it a little less. The next day you're gonna do it a little less, until you're no longer doing it, and then you go back to stage one. So you have to be intentional about your growth and you addressing the situation, thinking more positively until it comes more natural. And I'm not saying that it's like you have to always think positive, right? Because that we're humans. Like, there are going to be negative thoughts, you're going to be emotional, but at the end of the day, you have your emotional phases and you go through it, and then after all of that, you can think about it and say perspective. Be positive about it, thinking about it another way.
Yeah, definitely. So I think this will bring, it's a good way to segue into behavioral dysregulation. So it refers to like self-sabotage, I guess will be the term. Making sure you're doing, these are the small wins. I used to have a manager who used to always say, don't miss the small wins. Even if it's, I made it to this meeting on time. I was here. I took notes at this meeting. I didn't know what they were talking about in the meeting today, but I took notes. I can refer to whatever was discussed, and then reach out, voice your concern. Like, whatever we spoke about today, I did not really quite get it. But here, based on these notes, can you share some information? Maybe you have, more than likely you'll have questions, because again, you don't really know, right? So you ask those questions. Again, this is how you learn, because we don't all know everything.
Yeah, and like what you was mentioning about asking for help, one of the types of imposter syndrome is soloists. That's people who don't like to ask for help. So that would be a good solution to kind of practice to ask for help. It's okay to ask for help. No one knows it all, right? And not because you don't know it, that means you're a fraud. Something that you're not good enough just because you go into a new environment and you're not like aware of the little things to get the job done. When you're going to a job, you're going to learn. You're at the baby stage. You don't know anything about these people or this job, but they wouldn't hire you unless they knew you had the potential to learn and grow and produce well for the company, right? Life is not perfect, right? You won't always be an expert. You can't always be a soloist. I hope you guys realize I'm dropping the types here. You won't always be a superhuman. And you're definitely not always going to be that natural genius that you think you are. It's okay not to know. It's okay to be uncomfortable. Being uncomfortable, you're challenged. That's where you get to grow. What's the biggest advice to get over imposter syndrome?
I think the biggest advice I would have is not being scared to like voice your concern, share like, okay, I'm willing to learn this. I'm a quick learner. I put in the time, but I'm not comfortable yet to whatever the case may be, right? Just remind yourself of the small things, small or big things that you've accomplished. If you're able to do that, you could still accomplish even more, so.
Yeah, my biggest advice, accept it. It is what it is. The richest and the most successful, the most accomplished, they have these self-doubts saying that they're a fraud, right? So remember that. Accept, address, and act.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, so that would be my biggest advice for imposter syndrome. Thanks for coming up, Fab.
It was a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And she's subscribed and she always gets her notifications.
Yeah.
Notification gang.